So I could go on an entire day, but I'm left with two more questions before we move on to a public Q&A. And this is a personal question which I'm going to ask you. Is that in one of your interviews, you talk about how your mother was a force of nature in your life and your creation of art. And when she was kind of, when you were growing up, she did her job so you could be successful someday. And you talk about how she was a dancer, she was a classical dancer, and she was a artist in many regards. So was my mother, actually. And I lost her in 2019. And you talk in the interview, you say something along the lines that when you eventually became successful, she was not around to see you be successful. And that is your biggest regret. Do you want to talk about your mother and how she was instrumental in your...
Yeah, I mean, my mother, I grew up, my mother actually she was part of something called, she was a Bharatanatyam dancer and she used to do theatre, Marathi and Gujarati theatre. And I grew up with a lot of Marathi theatre stalwarts coming to my house. And they used to hang out and everything used to fall on my ears, things that fall on your ears ultimately inhabit your soul. I believe strongly in that. You don't need to understand everything there and then. And that is the fallacy of our education system, that जो अभी सिखाया जा रहा है, अभी समझो, अभी उसको regurgitate करो, निकालो. Things impact you very late. The physics that I learnt in engineering college is something that I understand now. So similarly, what my mother was, and the people, there were some really lovely people. There was one person I remember was Professor Vasant Bapat. He was her professor. He was a poet, and along with him, Dr. Pula Deshpande. These were people that I used to meet, and I did not understand a lot of things that they spoke. But now when I read what they wrote, their writings, I understand it better, and I'm thankful that my mother helped me inhabit, somewhere those words became part of my soul. And yeah, I mean, I think this is something we can go on and on forever. But yeah, she played an important part in my life. She passed away in 2013, which was the year Shahid was released. And that was the time I actually found my voice. So she saw me struggling to find my voice. And when I found my voice, I think she lives on through that voice.
I relate to that on a spiritual level. And yeah, that's a very endearing story, anecdote there. So final question, and it's more of a request, and it's going to be a controversial one. Because I've not asked you anything controversial yet. So, मैं ना सर आपसे इंस्पायर होके अभी स्क्रीन राइटर बन गया हूँ मैं, right? And I'm writing a story, and the story is about minorities. The minorities are called Odias, right? तो हम ना बहुत सताए हुए लोग हैं, हम ओडिया लोग. हम लोग नॉर्थ इंडिया को जाते हैं, हमें साउथ इंडियन बुलाया जाता है. If you go to South India, we are called North Indians. गलती से अगर ओडिशा और इंडिया से बाहर चले गए, so we are called Bengalis, right? So would you want to talk about the identity crisis that Odias are having?
I think there's no need to have that identity crisis. And yes, if you strongly face that kind of identity crisis, you need to make a film that is authentically Odia and take that story to the world. Express yourself, your own crisis through your stories. I think that is of prime importance, and we have to find ways, better ways of taking our cinema. It is something. It's a conversation with OTT platforms and all that we constantly have. Malayalam cinema became certainly part of the mainstream conversation in the last 2 years because Amazon Prime, Netflix started acquiring a lot of that. Fahad Fasil suddenly became a household name all of a sudden. So Allu Arjun, people started knowing him because. So I think that net needs to spread far and wide. While this was happening, there's a film called The Disciple by Chaitanya Tamane, very fine filmmaker. So The Disciple was acquired at such a low price by an OTT platform that the producer, his back was broken. I mean, he will struggled to make another film with Chaitanya. You know, although it had names like Alfonso Cuarón, everybody on the film, Netflix bought the film. They said this is the highest price we have paid for a Marathi film, and I found the entire statement derogatory. You know, the film has traveled around the world. The film has transcended language, and yet when it comes to putting a price on the film, you say this is also, it puts Marathi cinema down. I mean, one of the largest hits of the last few years has been Sairat. That kind of commercial success, all these Hindi films that say that they have done 200 crores have not made even a percentage of the profit that Sairat has made. Because always, films never fail, budgets fail. And that is something you must understand. You budget your film correctly, your film will never fail.
So basically that's a yes, you will make that Odia film with us. Sitarang will produce it.
I will watch it.
No, you will direct it, sir. And I'm a up and coming actor. I'm trying my luck. I'm a struggling actor right now. So I'm kidding. But this was a very insightful interaction with you, sir. And one last question. You're a foodie. Have you tried any Odia food?
Yeah, since yesterday I've been in food coma. Genuine food coma. Okay. I mean, dalma just knocks me out. It completely knocks me out. I love it, but it's a knockout punch, So today I said I'm not going to eat till this is over.
मैंने आपको मतलब जैसे कि आपने बताया कि स्ट्रगलिंग मतलब जिस तरह से बताया दिल पे मत ले यार से लेके आज तक मैं आपको देख रहा हूँ उस समय जैसे कि कहते हैं कि सब सक्सेस बाद में जैसे शहीद के बाद जो आपका जो है दिल पे मत ले यार पे मैंने ऑडिशन दिया था आपने मुझे घर पे बुलाया आपने बोला कि एक एक्टर आया है NSD से जो कॉन्फिडेंस आपने मुझे दिलाया आज तक उसी कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ मैं उड़ीसा में काम कर रहा हूँ फॉर दैट थैंक यू सो मच और ये सच है कि आप ही ने मुझे वो कॉन्फिडेंस दिलाया था कि तू एक्टर है बात यह है कि मैंने आपको उस समय जैसे देखा था आज इस फोरम में भी ऐसे ही है तो आपका जो आर्ट है मैंने बहुत कम लोगों से सुना है कि यार ये अंसल का फिल्म बकवास है ये सच्चाई है
मुझसे पूछो मैं बताता
ये अलग बात है लेकिन एक पॉजिटिव बहुत होता है आपकी फिल्में जब भी मतलब लोग देख के आते हैं तो एक पॉजिटिवनेस उसमें बहुत होता है तो क्या एक जैसे आप हो वैसे आज भी आप ऐसे ही हो मैं इसीलिए बोल रहा हूँ कि क्या एक आदमी का पर्सनल कैरेक्टर उसके आर्ट में झलकता है क्या अच्छा बुरा नहीं बोल रहा हूँ मैं नहीं पूछ रहा हूँ तो एक
हमेशा मतलब इट इज सच अ पर्सनल थिंग आर्ट इज एन एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ योर सेल्फ वो जैसा भी अच्छा बुरा मतलब वो तो बाद में आप बनाते हो बनाते आप ये थोड़ी सोचते हो मैं अभी बहुत कुछ बुरा बनाने वाला हूँ वो तो आप कभी सोचते नहीं हो यू मेक वॉट यू फील स्ट्रांगली अबाउट एट दैट टाइम आप बनाते हो एंड अलॉन्ग द लाइन आप फेल होते हो तो आप उसे सीखते हो एंड हाँ पता नहीं मैं कितना बदला हूँ कितना नहीं पता नहीं मैं वैसा ही हूँ हाँ
I actually don't agree with you when you say that it's a construct that is not there. When you say that there is mainstream cinema versus regional cinema. Versus is what I'm adding. But Mumbai industry, let's put it not Bollywood, has been really ruthless towards the regional cinema. And we being Marathi filmmakers, and very proud filmmakers, we have felt it all the time. Like for instance, none of our films, despite each of them being a national award winner film, have been touched by any of the OTT platforms. Because it is Marathi. Well, we don't expect a lot of money also. So as far as we both are concerned, the money is not the issue. Point is the disdainful attitude that is prevalent in Mumbai industry towards other cinema languages. If you don't like the word regional cinema, it exists, whether you and me believe. And it has been perpetrated all the time. And unfortunately, the younger filmmakers who have the power, I will name them, like for instance the Adi Chopras and the Karan Johars et al. They propagate it, and this divide does exist, whether we like it or not, that regional cinema is bad and or secondary as opposed to the Hindi mainstream. And I think somewhere we need to really address that and criticize that, especially from a person like you who mingle with the mainstream cinema makers.
So, when I said I am against that construct, I have always been traditionally against that construct. It exists, and that makes me angry. It makes me very upset that such a divide has been made to exist. We live in a predominantly, so even in my stories, I keep pushing myself that, I'm not going to constantly, because Hindi cinema has become like the domain of the Malhotras and the Sharmas, and, that North Indian, the Punjabi is the only character who has dilemmas, who has problems, whose existential crisis a Hindi film solves. So I have a problem with that the stereotypical, that the Muslim is the nice neighbor with surma in his eyes. I have a problem with those stereotypes that we have perpetrated. The Bengali is the person who puts a rasgulla in his mouth and talks. So those stereotypes you have to break. I mean, Amol sir was part of a cinema. I mean, I was growing up at that time. It was refreshing that Basu Chatterjee's films, that the realism that we talk about and that we hope to achieve through the kind of films we make, it was happening effortlessly. And it had an audience. And every kind of cinema. There was an Akashvani theatre. We don't have those theatres anymore. And I am as marginalized as a regional filmmaker. And Aligarh was out of the theatres on Monday. But I live with that comfort that Aligarh goes beyond those 3 days, the Friday, Saturday and Sunday. That whole, the Punjabification, if you may call it, has led to this reductive that a film is as good as its Friday. A film is as good as its weekend. I mean, how can a weekend decide? Ultimately, what is the amount of money that even a Sholay collected? Do we know? No. We don't know. How much money did Golmaal collect? We don't know. The older Golmaal and the newer Golmaal. What did they collect? So we don't know. Ultimately, films live on. Either they live on or they are forgotten. Most of the films that we talk about in the Friday, Saturday, Sunday films, they are dead on Monday. They are forgotten. So I'm against the construct.
Yeah. So I have one question, but it has to be answered in two ways. What do you think OTT is doing good because? So I'm giving you options, and whichever combination you think it will work. Because of story or casting new actors, freedom of time and decide how much and how long you want to sit and watch, or cost, and not doing justification because. So,
I mean, you answered all the questions actually. All the answers are there in your question only. I think it's filled a vacuum. It's filled a need that was being limited, and we have a long way to go. But that was fueled by the need for a larger way to exhibit the kind of work that many of us do. Today a Raj and DK or me would not have been existing had it not been for the OTT platforms. Our last films had not worked. And while Raj and DK had Stree before that, but I think OTT platforms gave us that power to be able to do what we want to do. I think a long way to go. It's very soon, very quickly, our country deteriorates into reductive mediocrity. So that is a danger that we face, that we will immediately find a formula. So every second day I'm told, I've got this story about this very big scam. You know, that'll make a terrific series. Every day, every day Adani is spoken about. I'm told that, you know, you should make something on Adani scam. I said, I don't know, he's a boring character. You know, my story was not about the scam, it was about the character. Harshad Mehta was a fascinating character. And that is why my story worked. It's not because it was a scam, but the tendency to find a formula in everything kills what the creativity of what we do. You know, we are unable to create because we put everything in a box very quickly. You know, we want those solutions. I mean, that is the reason we are ruled by the present government. We have, you know, decided that all our problems will be solved if we change our Prime Minister. So, 10 years we have accepted this. You know, so we resign ourselves very quickly to our fate. That this is a one-stop solution to all our problems.